All right, so one question I've been asked probably more times than not, actually, since I've started my YouTube channel and since I've had my firearm like in different videos and whatever. And I see this question a lot, and I actually um, got it again today when I was at the range, and that is the modified trigger on your carry piece. So, just so you know, this is already unloaded and safety checked. No rounds in the magazine, just for all those nuts out there. But anyway, the modified trigger, or so you have it, whatever you want to call it, upgraded trigger. It's one of those things where, and I've done some research on it. It's really hard to find a case to where somebody was prosecuted in a shooting in self-defense where they justified the fact that the trigger was upgraded is the reason they shot the gun. So it's like one of those things where really it's up to you. It's if you think you know the laws and you can stand behind your right to carry and all that. And I guess like if a cop pulled you over and he was like, let me see your gun, which they really can't legally do anyway. But if that was the case and they did do that, and they were like, oh, I see you got an upgraded trigger, and they tried to like take it away from you or something, which they cannot do. It's just like, I don't know, it's one of those subjects where people just really don't know. So here's my kind of thought about it and what I was kind of thinking behind the whole thing. So first of all, the trigger that I chose to get is a OC Customs trigger. Now I am replacing it with a Johnny Glock's trigger, but this is what I have in there now. So it's really not even anything but a polished trigger bar and a ghost connector in the back. You have like a 1% chance of even getting in a shooting, let alone a self-defense shooting. So in order for me to ever have to pull out my firearm, it would have to be in a self-defense situation. So if I used a gun in a self-defense situation, then what would I be getting prosecuted for? Okay, so if I got in a self-defense situation and I pulled the trigger and I shot the guy, possibly lethal round, maybe not. The guy tried to sue me. They found out it was an upgraded trigger, whatever. I could make the argument and bring in professional shooters and stuff like that to say that, in my argument, it actually makes the gun safer because there's more, you can, with the brake and just the way, you can aim better. You have, that trigger, that whole squeeze, that whole juicy, that whole like area where you're squeezing is not there, and it's like, you're pulling and you just get a better shot in general. So it's like the whole upgraded trigger thing, I think it's kind of nonsense. I just think it's just one of those things where the media just kind of labeled it as something like, oh, you can't do that and carry it. There's actually no law that I found that says you can do that. And it's funny because when I was at the police academy and I went through my police thing for the Philadelphia police, the detective who was doing my background check, he specifically brought up, we know you upgraded your Glock trigger. And I just kind of didn't know what to say to him at that point because I was kind of already frozen up about the fact that he was like, oh, you're never going to be a police officer in Philadelphia. So I was kind of like on that. And I didn't really give a shit what he thought about my gun because I knew he didn't know what he was talking about anyway. So I was like, But it's funny that he said that. It's like, dude, really? So what? So I upgraded my trigger. Big deal. It's just one of those things. Like everybody just kind of has their own thought about it. That's mine. In order for me to ever have to pull my firearm out, it's going to have to be in a self-defense situation, no matter what. There's not going to be any other reason. If somebody drives by me like an asshole, I'm not going to chase him down. You know what I mean? It's just people do it though. So if you're one of those people and you have an upgraded trigger, chances are you're going to probably go to jail for premeditated homicide, like, you know what I mean, or something like that, because you have the intent to do harm to somebody, which is the whole argument behind the trigger on a carry gun. So in theory, they say somebody who puts a upgraded trigger on their firearm and carries it every day wants to kill people. It's just a whole just absolute mess of media crapola that just I wouldn't buy into it at all. If you're a law-abiding citizen of the Second Amendment and the Constitution, you have your right to bear arms, and you upgrade your trigger. You do within the legal limits of your magazine capacity in your state. I know in California you can only have like 10, whatever. In PA, it doesn't really matter. But as far as the trigger goes, I'm not pulling this thing out unless my life is endangered, and they're gonna have a real tough time in court proving that, any other way than that. So that's just my whole thought on it, and I'm not a lawyer. I just looked up some quick things, research. Anybody can do the same thing. There's like one case where it was like the guy, it was just a bad shoot anyway. Actually, Harley Wood talks about it on his channel too, if you want to check that out. But it's just the situation that person was in was just a shitty thing. It was just bad for him. So that's like the one case. But it was like an aggressive thing. And he shouldn't have pulled his firearm out to begin with. So the whole point, though, is that trigger upgrade does not make this firearm any more dangerous than it would have been without it. So that's just kind of my theory about it. And I love them night sights, man. But anyway, that's just my whole theory on the trigger. So anyway, guys, that's it. And I hope you have a good one. See you in the next one. Peace.